When she declared my dog as property, it felt as though the ground had shifted beneath my feet. What could one man do against such unyielding entitlement? I live in a small suburban town named Maple Grove, a place where everyone knows your name, and the scent of freshly baked pie wafts through the air on warm summer days. Kids ride their bikes in the streets, laughter fills the parks, and friendly smiles are exchanged over garden fences. Here, life settles into a routine that feels comforting: a friendly bookstore on Main Street, a quaint cafe with mismatched chairs, and the vibrant community center, which always buzzes with activity. It's the kind of place where neighbors help each other mow lawns or watch each other's kids for a quick errand. But even in this picture-perfect setting, something can stir underneath the surface, lurking just out of sight. I'm Tom, an everyday guy in my 40s, standing at just about average height, with tousled brown hair that never quite matches my aspirations for neatness. My most cherished possession isn't a flashy car or a fancy suit. It's my golden retriever, Max, with his sun-dappled coat and tail that wags like a windmill in a summer breeze. Max isn't just a dog. He's my companion, my confidant, and sometimes my reason to get out of bed on days when the world feels heavy. Together, we explore every corner of Maple Grove, generating a bond that's seen in the way he nudges against my hand or pushes his nose into my pocket, hoping for treats or just a bit of love. The joy of our day often involves little routines, like our morning stroll around the park, where Max greets every passerby as if they're long-lost friends. His infectious enthusiasm is contagious, drawing smiles and petting hands from children, old folks, and even fellow dog owners, affirming the simple truth: love for an animal can bring a community together. As mundane as life might seem sometimes, moments like these illuminate my existence, filling it with warmth and laughter. But beyond our little bubble of happiness lies a substantial shadow: the figure of Karen Bellamy. She's a local politician with wealth, connections, and an overwhelming presence that makes her feel larger than life itself. With perfectly styled hair and tailored clothes, she walks through town as if she owns the place, her gaze piercing and her brow often resting in an unyielding frown. Behind her polished exterior lies an alarming sense of entitlement. She struts around, ready to enforce her will on anyone who dares cross her path. Stories quickly spread of her confrontations with business owners, neighbors, and even city officials, all witnessing her unwavering expectation to get what she wants. It's not long before our paths cross, an encounter I'll remember for all the wrong reasons. It starts off innocently enough, a sunny Saturday as I decide to take Max to the local mall for a bit of window shopping. It's a place filled with chatter and laughter, where families escape the weather or teenagers flock to hang out and enjoy a slice of pizza. I navigate through the shops with Max by my side, his tail wagging merrily as he takes in the world, greeting passers-by as if he were a celebrity, spreading joy wherever he went. Then suddenly the atmosphere shifts as we wander into the pet store. The scent of cedar shavings and the chorus of playful barks from the small pups waiting for adoption wrap around us like a blanket, momentarily masking my unease. That's when I spot Karen. She's usually accompanied by her lavishly dressed entourage, but today she's alone, scanning the shop with an indifference that makes me feel uneasy. I can't shake the feeling that something is about to go wrong. As I kneel to scratch Max behind the ears, I suddenly hear her voice, cutting through the hum of the store like a knife. "That's my dog," she declares, her tone crisp and commanding. Confusion flickers through me, and I stand up, incredulous. "Excuse me?" I reply, frowning and searching her face for some sign of a joke. But there's none. She insists her dog, which I later learned was a similar golden retriever, had gone missing, and that Max is the spitting image of it, her property. Panic twists in my stomach as disbelief washes over me like cold water. "With all due respect, Max isn't yours. He's mine," I assert, trying to keep my voice steady, to not let her warped sense of ownership shake my position. She raises an eyebrow, a slow smile spreading across her face that feels more like a predator's than a friend's. "Oh, I'm sure we'll sort this out. You see, I have connections. And, well, I could make life quite difficult for you if you resist." Her words grip me with a chill, and suddenly my casual outing feels like a full-blown crisis. It dawns on me that this isn't just about a misunderstanding. It's about a battle between my love for Max and her frightening sense of entitlement. Struggling to collect my thoughts while Max leans into me for comfort, I can't help but wonder how far she is willing to go to prove her claim. I never expected my peaceful life in Maple Grove to devolve into a theater of chaos. But as I glance at Karen's cold smile, I realize that she won't walk away easily. The fight for not just my dog, but for justice is about to begin, and I can feel my heart pounding, ready to stand against the looming storm. The mall on a Saturday afternoon buzzed with life, its atrium flooded with sunlight filtering through high glass ceilings, illuminating the vibrant colors of storefronts and the delighted faces of shoppers. The scent of pretzels and cinnamon swirled from the snack stands, wrapping the atmosphere in a welcoming embrace. As I trotted alongside Max, my golden retriever, the world felt right. There's something about a bustling mall that brings people together, united by drink in hand and smiles exchanged. Max pranced at my side, his thick fur glistening in the light. He always had that uncanny ability to lift my spirits, a wagging tail and bright eyes that reflected pure joy. He was my escape from the mundane routine of life, always eager to dive headfirst into every new experience. As we ambled through the mall, greeting wide-eyed children who rushed to pat him, I felt gratitude swell within me. "You're a star, aren't you, boy?" I chuckled, scratching his ears as his tail thumped against my leg, eliciting smiles from passers-by. With each step, music played softly from kiosks, while laughter floated above the chatter. We strolled past the pop-up shops, where artfully crafted goods were displayed amidst colorful banners. My heart warmed as I watched families gather under retractable umbrellas, savoring ice cream cones and soaking up the atmosphere. The joy around me felt infectious. Yet beneath the surface of these merriments, I couldn't help but sense a hint of tension, an undercurrent that slighted the joyous hum of the mall. We turned the corner into the pet store nestled at the heart of the shopping complex, a welcoming haven for animal lovers. The scent of dried kibble mixed with the faint smell of puppies filled the air. I enjoyed watching Max's exuberance as he sniffed his way through aisles adorned with plush toys and treats. However, it was halfway down the aisle that the day took a sharp turn. Karen was there. I recognized her instantly, the affluent figure from our community, known for strutting through town like she owned the very sidewalks we walked upon. Her designer sunglasses sat atop perfectly coiffed hair, framing a face that exuded privilege, the kind that can silence dissent with a mere raise of her perfectly manicured eyebrow. As I approached, a feeling of unease crept over me. Something unsettling about the way her gaze fixed on Max, a shimmer of possessiveness lurking in her eyes. "Tom," she greeted, her tone deceptively sweet, laced with a hint of entitlement. A disingenuous smile played on her lips, and I knew I was in for a confrontation. "Karen," I replied cautiously, bracing myself. "What brings you here today?" Her eyes flicked toward Max. "Lovely dog you have there. Very familiar." She hesitated a heartbeat, then continued. "You know, I lost a similar one just last week. His name is Max as well." My heart dropped. A whirlwind of confusion swirled within me. "This is my dog. His name is Max. I don't know anything about your lost dog." I tried to keep my tone even, but a hint of defensiveness crept in. She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, I'm sure you must have heard of my recent charity initiatives, the community projects I've backed." She leaned closer. "I believe I have every right to take what's mine, especially when I'm in a position to help the community with it." I took a step back, irritation brewing. "Karen, you can't just—" I opened my mouth to protest, my voice steady but firm, capturing the stance held by the many who felt marginalized by her blustering superiority. But her smile turned to a calculated smirk. She leaned forward, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Tom, if it comes down to it, I could certainly get legal involved. Imagine the headlines if you refuse my claims. You wouldn't want to become an outcast in your own town, would you?" The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. Rage started bubbling beneath my skin, flooding my face with heat. "You don't have any right to claim my dog. I won't let you bully me." I felt a defiance surge within, magnifying the unfairness of her entitlement as every fiber of despair and disbelief collided. She merely chuckled, dismissing my objection as if my resolute bond with Max meant nothing to her. The energy shifted, the atmosphere thick with looming chaos, leaving a lingering sense of disquiet that invaded even the cheerful bubble of the mall. As I turned to leave, my heart pounding and head swimming with disbelief, I could almost hear her fading laughter behind me, a taunt echoing in the back of my mind. The battle for Max had begun, though I thought it merely a skirmish now. It would soon reveal itself as a war against her self-righteous hold on the community, and I was determined not to back down. As I stood there in the mall, my heart racing and frustration boiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped in some surreal nightmare. Karen's voice echoed in my ears, each word dripping with entitlement as she repeatedly insisted that Max belonged to her. I could practically see her claws digging into the very fabric of our community, and with that realization came a pall of anger. Tom, just let it go, I convinced myself, desperately trying to reclaim my composure. But I knew deep inside that this was a fight I couldn't walk away from, not just for Max's sake, but for my dignity, for our bond, and for anyone else Karen may have trampled in her wake. I took a deep breath, grounding myself as I turned to face Karen. You seriously think you can just walk up and... She cut me off, her smirk barely hiding her disdain. I'm not asking for your permission, Tom. I'm simply reclaiming what's mine. I think it's clear how this works in our town. The law is on my side, and you might want to consider your options. Mine? Max is my dog. I stepped forward, my tone firm yet sincere. If you lost a dog, then that's unfortunate, but it's not my problem. Max has been with me for years, and there's not a chance in the world I'm letting you take him away. The people milling around us began to take notice, their heads turning as the tension heightened. Oh, are you really going to make a scene? In front of everyone? Karen leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. I suggest you think long and hard about the consequences of standing in my way. I have friends who will make your life miserable if you don't comply. You know what they say about the squeaky wheel, don't you? Her eyes glimmered with a sadistic satisfaction, as if this entire scene was nothing more than a game to her. My stomach twisted at her words, a familiar knot of anxiety forming. What was I doing? No, this wasn't a game. It was my life, my dog, my friend. The sense of community I had cherished was dissolving in front of my eyes, spun into knots by her self-importance. You really think you can just intimidate me? I shot back, feeling the exterior of my composure beginning to crack. You don't even know half the people in this town. They know me. They know Max. I won't let you do this. Karen threw her head back and laughed, an exaggerated performance fit for a stage. Tom, darling, it's adorable that you think they care. I'm porcelain, and you're just the dust on the shelf. Do you really want to wage war? You and your little dog against the powerful Karen? It's cute, but we both know how this will end. She turned with a flourish, striding away, the people murmuring quietly, unsure of what to make of the unfolding chaos. In my anger, I reached for my phone, instinctively dialing mall security. As I recounted what had just transpired, my heart sank as I saw security's uncertain expressions. The officer nodded, but I could see the hesitation in his eyes. She was a formidable figure in town, the queen bee, and I was just a guy with a dog. The tension hung heavy in the air, and my stomach churned. Well, we can't really take action unless there's a formal complaint, the officer had said, shrugging nonchalantly. I mean, it's a gray area. Gray area? My frustration flared to life again. I needed a plan, some way to push back against the tidal wave of injustice Karen had sent my way. I marched out of the mall with my heart pounding. I wouldn't let her intimidate me, nor would I surrender Max to her arbitrary claim. But the days that followed were poison. Karen escalated her game, appearing outside my house with her over-the-top lost dog flyers plastered across the neighborhood. Each flyer depicted a dog that looked hauntingly familiar, but it was clear she had copied Max's adorable photo. The nerve! She not only launched an assault on my sense of rightful ownership, but she had also ventured into a level of manipulation aimed at garnering sympathy from neighbors who barely knew me. Tom, have you seen this? my friend Steve called, practically thrusting the flyer in my face. "This is madness. How can she do this?" "They don't know," I replied, barely able to contain my frustration. "They see her wealth and status, and they believe her. I need proof. I need to show everyone she's lying." "Then gather facts will help you," Steve urged, the fire of camaraderie igniting our spirits. From then on, my friends and I became an unyielding force. We began surveying the neighborhood, talking to anyone who had crossed paths with Karen. With each conversation, evidence began to sprout like weeds. Past complaints against her, and stories of her attempts to showcase power over others. "I never thought of it like that," one neighbor revealed hesitantly, gazing around with alarm. "She made me feel guilty about my cat once. It was terrible." Every seed of doubt we planted began to sprout into a garden of awareness. Fueled by shared anger and disbelief, I amassed witnesses willing to step forward. New photos were added to my collection, and soon I compiled a narrative underscoring the reality of Karen's character. As the pieces began to fit together, a hungry fire erupted within me. Yet Karen remained relentless. She visited the dog park where Max and I often spent our afternoons, her elegant laughter echoing through the air. "Oh, look who's here! Our local hero! Tom, I heard about your little army," she taunted, an undercurrent of venom cloaked within her polished words. "You think they'll stand by you? Did you forget how fast they'll turn?" For every laugh and jeer, I felt my resolve strengthen. "It doesn't matter, Karen," I shot back. "You've underestimated the people in this town who care about what's right." I flagged down a passerby, hoping to keep the shifting tides within reach. "Max is my family, and I promise you this, no amount of entitlement will break us." As I saw Max's tail wagging, despite the fracas around us, I felt inspired. Defiance surged through me, amplified by the support that had begun to coalesce in my corner. Each day I fought was one step closer to reclaiming more than just my dog. It was paramount to reclaiming my spirit and the community's heartbeat against oppressive entitlement. The winds were shifting. The clash between us had become intolerable, but with each day I felt more empowered. The imminent confrontation was pulsing closer, and I was ready to face Karen armed with truth, allies, and a renewed sense of ownership over my life and my dog. As the days dragged on, the shadow of Karen loomed ever larger over my life. She seemed to appear everywhere: the grocery store, the park, even in front of my own house, casually patting Max's head as if she had every right to treat him as hers. Her social media had transformed into a campaign of misinformation, with photoshopped images of Max and hastily written posts declaring her lost pup's miraculous return. Comments rolled in from well-meaning friends of hers, sympathizing but entirely unaware of the truth. Frankly, I felt like I was losing my mind. On a particularly gray Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzed violently against the coffee table. Brian, one of my close friends, was calling. I answered, urgency tinged in his voice. "Tom, you won't believe this. Karen's at the park with a sign that says, 'Reunited with Max.'" The pit in my stomach tightened. This wasn't just her usual claiming behavior. This was her trying to rewrite the narrative entirely. "I'm heading down there," I said, already grabbing my jacket. "We can't let her get away with this. We need to expose her today." I could feel determination coursing through my veins, mixed with dread over facing her once again. Once at the park, the scene was almost surreal. Karen sat on a picnic blanket, surrounded by an impressive array of snacks, flashing smiles at everyone passing by as they gawked at Max, who happily lounged beside her, blissfully unaware of the chaos. It felt like a terrible betrayal, watching him relish the attention that should have belonged solely to us. "Let's go," Brian urged, nudging my shoulder. Together, we approached her. My heart raced, but the anger fueled me. "Karen," I called, trying to cut through her saccharine laughter. It took a moment for her to look up, but when she did, the amusement faded, replaced by the cold, calculating glint I had come to recognize. "Tom," she replied, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "You'll want to calm down. I've already spoken to several people here, and they agree with me. It seems I found my dog." She patted Max on the head, the casualness of her touch making my blood boil. "Your dog," I spat, my voice rising. "You're out of your mind if you think anyone believes that. He's mine, and you need to stop this. You're publicly lying, and it needs to end." Karen chuckled, tilting her head as if she were humorously pondering my sanity. "Oh, Tom, I think everyone here can see it differently. After all, Max is in the best hands. Yours have never been this disheveled." The crowd around us had begun to murmur, the beginnings of doubt creeping into my heart. How many were swayed by her charm and connections? She always carried herself with such confidence. I could almost hear their thoughts turning, could feel myself slipping away as they stared, uncertain. "Listen," Brian interjected, trying to change the atmosphere. "We have proof, information you wouldn't have if you didn't hold that entitlement over everyone here. We've gathered witnesses. We have photographs." Karen's expression shifted, her composure faltering briefly. "And what exactly do you think that accomplishes?" she shot back, regaining her bravado quickly. "These people wouldn't dare oppose me. I might just close down the park entirely if you cause a scene, you know." The words slithered into me like poison. It was her classic move, threatening everyone's ability to enjoy this place just to keep them on her side. I knew now that this was about far more than just me and my dog. This was about standing against an old entrenchment of privilege and ownership she assumed she held over everyone. "Enough, Karen. This isn't just about you." I took a deep breath, shaking off the quiver in my voice. "This is about a dog's loyalty to his owner, something you would never understand." "Oh, isn't that sweet?" she replied with a tinge of mockery. "The everyman fighting for what he thinks he owns. What a quaint little story. But let's not kid ourselves. If no one sees it your way, then what's left?" It was as if time stopped. The air thickened with a tension that felt palpable, suffocating. I glanced behind me, noticing how an audience had formed, people I recognized, some supporters, but many simply seeking entertainment from the unfolding drama. Fueled by equal parts fear and defiance, I stepped closer to her. "I may not have your connections, but I have something far more lasting. The love between Max and me. That counts more than anything you hold." A beat passed, punctuated only by the sound of Max playfully chasing a few children running by. But where I once saw hope, I felt desperation creeping in. Karen's eyes shone with vindictive delight, her lips curling into a sly smile. "Love? Oh, but how do you really measure that, Tom? In pictures? In moments? I'll remind you of this when the community decides who has the right to Max." The echo of her words sank deep into my chest. How could the townsfolk rely on her distorted truths? But before I could reply, someone in the crowd I didn't recognize suddenly spoke up. "Hey, Karen, what about those other dogs you claimed to have owned before? Where are they now?" Her smile faltered for a second as she looked around, instinctively tightening her grip on Max's collar. My heart surged. This was my chance. Community distrust was beginning to signal an opportunity. But then, she turned to me with a wildfire in her gaze. "You think this is over? You think they'll align with you? Just wait. I won't go down without a fight, Tom, and neither will my friends." The fear in my gut churned, a foreboding realization settling in. The small glint of victory was abruptly overshadowed by an overwhelming dread. This battle was far from over. I knew Karen would retaliate. As the crowd pressed in closer, whispers began to rise, skepticism mounting against Karen's claims. But I understood that she too would take measures to protect her fragile image. What did she have planned next? Would she go as low as intimidation? Max nuzzled against me, sensing the turmoil rippling through the atmosphere. He wheezed softly, his trust unwavering, and at that moment, I could feel him urging me forward. I had to be the voice of reason in this chaos. But as I stood there, with eyes locked firmly on Karen's, a new understanding chilled my heart. The fight for Max was more than just my own. It was for every person who had stood under the weight of entitlement. Could I truly rise to meet this overwhelming giant? The question lingered, a silent promise weighing heavily between us, the air crackling with unspoken truths. That this battle was crafting a bridge between his world and mine, one dictated by love, friendship, and the stark reality of standing up against the tidal wave of self-interest. Would I triumph or fall to the very forces that sought to divide us? The confrontation erupted in the small, familiar space outside the mall. a once peaceful area that now felt charged, almost electric with tension. The sunlight glinted across the asphalt, illuminating the faces of the onlookers drawn by the escalating drama. My heart raced as I stood firm, ready for the storm that had been brewing since that fateful day when Karen had first stolen my peace. Max sat at my side, his loyal eyes fixed on me, sensing the change in the air. "I don't have time for this, Tom," Karen sneered. Her lips curved into a condescending smile that could only be described as predatory. "You need to understand that your little dog isn't worth fighting for, not against someone with my resources. Just let it go. I'll even allow you to walk away without legal consequences." A murmur rippled through the crowd, a mix of disbelief and stifled laughter. I felt my palms grow clammy, but I stood my ground. "You let go of my dog on your own accord, Karen. You're right. He isn't just any dog. He's my family, and I refuse to let you take him simply because you possess entitlement. It's not about resources, it's about truth." Karen's brown eyes narrowed, flashing with anger as she leaned slowly into my space, invading my personal bubble. "You really think you can stand up to me? I've owned this town longer than you've owned that mutt. People here know me, respect me. They know I'm right." As the sweat trickled down the small of my back, I caught sight of my friends, Lee, Sarah, and Jake, milling behind the onlookers. They were straining forward, their support palpable. I took a breath, feeling the rush of adrenaline mixed with doubt. Just then, Sarah shouted, "Just tell us the truth, Karen. You've always taken what you wanted without a second thought." A few voices joined in, adding to the swell of courage. "Yeah, we've seen it happen before," another said. Karen's composed facade began to crack as the tide turned against her. "You're all blinded by lies." Karen's voice took on a shrill edge, wild and desperate. "You don't understand. I'm doing what's best for this community. I saw that dog first." In that moment, I saw the pulsing heat of her entitlement. She was backed against the wall, unraveling, and as chaos stirred around us, a glimmer of hope sparked within me. This was the moment of truth, a moment that could shatter her narrative once and for all. "Karen, you're not doing what's best for this community. You're acting in your self-interest, feeding into this toxic narrative that privilege means possession," I said, my voice steady. "Max is more than just a pet. He's a connection to the love and loyalty we share with the beings we care for. If you respect community values, prove it by returning him to me, where he belongs." She scoffed, spinning around, trying to gather her composure, but the crowd was reshaping its opinions by the second. A woman in the front, someone I recognized but hadn't spoken to much before, stepped up. "Karen, we all know you've bullied people long enough. What gives you the right to take Tom's dog? It's time to stop thinking you can manipulate us." A chorus of agreement followed her words, and I felt a rush of courage suffuse my body. With each moment, layers of fear peeled away from my confidence. Suddenly, I could see it wasn't solely about me and Max anymore. This was for everyone who had ever felt marginalized, for all the quiet voices who found themselves manipulated by the power dynamics of privilege. "Community is about support, not oppression," I yelled, my voice growing bolder amidst the noise, the wave of emotion surging through me. "You can't just decide who belongs when you don't even understand the concept of true connection." Anger spilled through the edges of my voice, and the crowd began to shout louder, rallying to my side. Karen looked startled, her posture stiffening. "You think this is a joke? You think I care what you or this pathetic gathering thinks? I've got a lawyer on speed dial who will—" But I interjected, cutting off her defense. "You think your money gives you control over other people's lives? You might feel that way, but that's not how this works, and that's not the kind of community we want." For a moment, there was silence. The air hung thick with anticipation. The crowd exchanged glances, the energy vibrating between us, a collective expectation. In that silence, I saw Karen falter, the mask of arrogance slipping away. As the reality set in around us, I pressed on. "This isn't just about a dog. It's about respect and community. I won't let you steamroll over those values." Her expression shifted, the defiance replaced by a flicker of uncertainty mingled with aggression. "You think you can win? You don't know who you're up against." But my heart soared with courage. bolstered by my friends and now the community who stood with me. Truth is, Karen, you're wrong. You've underestimated us, and it's brought us together. With that, I felt the turning point settle firmly into place. I exhaled, shaking with adrenaline, knowing that everything was about to change. This was our moment, my moment. As the crowd rallied behind me, for the first time in this surreal battle, I felt an unshakable belief that we would reclaim what was right. A kind of belonging that didn't rely on wealth or power, but on mutual respect and love. Make your call, Karen, I stated, my voice now calm but resonant with intensity. But remember, it's not just your call anymore. We all stand for what's right. In that instant, her world started to crumble. Panic flashed across her face, and the crowd felt like an unstoppable force, like a thunderstorm building for miles, no longer allowing her lies to hide behind her privilege. This was the dawn of change, a crescendo that would redefine our community's essence, reminding us that true ownership is not a matter of who possesses, but who cares and cherishes those we love. As I sit in my living room, Max curled up beside me. The air feels charged with a newfound energy, a blend of relief, gratitude, and the bittersweet aftertaste of this intense journey. It has been a few weeks since I confronted Karen and took back my beloved dog, yet the impact of that tumultuous encounter continues to resonate through our small suburban town. The aftermath has revealed itself in unexpected ways. My neighbors, once tentative to engage in confrontations with Karen, have rallied together, sharing their tales of her overreaching entitlement. Linda from 3 doors down, who had kept to herself, told me how Karen once tried to commandeer her garden project, declaring it unfit for the neighborhood. Over coffee, Pete, the local mechanic, spoke about Karen's attempts to claim his family's plot for community events without asking. As they recounted their experiences, I saw a palpable shift in the community. One Friday evening, we organized a Bark for Max event at the park, inviting everyone to bring their dogs. It began as a simple get-together for those who had supported me, but quickly turned into something far larger, a show of solidarity against what had become a symbol of overreach. As I glanced over at Max chasing after a fellow golden retriever, a swell of pride washed over me. The community was not only standing beside me, we were standing for something greater, unity and respect for all our beloved companions. Sitting there, immersed in laughter and barks, I could see how much this meant to the people who had gathered. Each tail wag was a reminder that the love we share with our pets extends deeper than mere ownership. It's about commitment, trust, and mutual respect. This experience has forever changed how we, as a community, respond to authority, both our own and others. When the night fell and the lights twinkled above us, I found myself speaking to the crowd, transporting back to that visceral moment when Karen denied our bond. "This isn't just about Max," I said, voice steady despite the tremor of emotion behind it. "This is about standing up for what matters: love, trust, and the simple truth that no one can take away the family we create, seen or unseen." The crowd erupted in applause, and I felt a sense of collective healing. It wasn't just my battle anymore. As the weeks rolled on, Karen's face became less of a looming presence in my mind, replaced instead by the familiar faces of the people around me. She chose silence over confrontation in the wake of the event, retreating into the shadows she once wielded with pride. Her retreat felt like a victory, not just for me, but for everyone who had ever swallowed their frustration in fear of reprisal. In the quiet moments at home, I often reflect on my journey. What initially felt like a heavy burden transformed into a pathway for personal growth, revealing the strength of unity and community support. On particularly warm mornings, I take Max for our usual walks, exchanging amicable nods and smiles with neighbors who once lurked in the background. We've created a bond that feels unbreakable, emphasizing just how interconnected we all are. This experience cemented a truth I've come to realize: that standing up against entitlement isn't just about reclaiming what is rightfully yours. It's also an opportunity for growth, empathy, and crafting deeper relationships. I have learned that my voice has strength, especially when it echoes the sentiments of those around me. This journey wasn't solely mine. It became our triumph, mutually embraced within the spirit of our little town. As I lean down to ruffle Max's fur, I can't help but think of how our trials have transformed into shared victories. Together, we remind ourselves and each other that true ownership is woven from love and respect, far surpassing possession.